these works that I'm doing right now has to do with, not so much, it has to do a lot with violence, but trying to put together opposites to balance violence and also.
It's a very seductive thing, and the guy, you might know, I was telling Dinura, this guy, this sculptor, and he also works in photography. I think his name is Christian Clements. Does that sound?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He did this sculpture, this marble sculpture I saw on the show, life size, beautiful. You know, looked like wood nine something. Perfect, incredibly beautiful and seductive and everything. And what it was like a woman who was kind of like a Jackie Ripper thing.
Yeah.
And everything was so beautiful.
Yeah, you know, there were Nancy Graves, my good friend who did, you know, all these sculptures about camels and then bones and whatever. When she was married to Richard Serra, and they were living in Italy, and they went to see those incredible Renaissance anatomical wax figures in which a Botticelli-like woman with real hair rooted in the whatever, and glass eyeballs and eyelashes open, lying there like this beautiful, beautiful Botticelli figure. And meanwhile, her gut is ripped open, and all the, this was the beginning of autopsies, where artists were beginning to look at what was inside the body as well. So here are the guts split open, and maybe the vagina split in two, and maybe there's a baby in the uterus, and yet blonde hair, blue eyes, lying there in a beatific position. These are some of the craziest ass shit you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you see when you look at her work?
Well, with the photographic works, I mean, it's a mixture of, I mean, the ideas of violence, which she, I mean, is using, but also the art history that she's also putting in there.
The Caravaggio-esque poses and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
But when you
she
look at
puts it
Caravaggio,
together
do
as
you
kind
feel
of
religious?
surrealistic.
When you look at Caravaggio, do you think it's about the religion, or do you think it's about a painting?
I think it's about the painting.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, the religion was the excuse to make a
Yeah,
painting.
exactly.
The excuse to have a naked figure was something going on. That's how I feel about the Nora stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you may feel exactly the opposite. You may feel all this stuff is the point of the picture. To me, it's not the point of the picture. It's the excuse to make the picture.
But what's the difference between the excuse? I know that you don't like the word inspiration, but
Yeah.
when I create, when I see an image and it's a story in front of my mind, you know, I create a narrative, and that's how I compose, you know, the images. Everything is in my mind before I actually, you know, it's different than, you know, working on a.
So when you work with photography, do you develop paintings from the photos and use it? You know, I mean, do you do work on? I was thinking asking you that question too, actually. The relationship when you decide that you're gonna, you know, at what point do you say, well, I'm doing a photograph, or I'm using the photograph as a means to do the painting and stuff like that? When do you decide which one and which?
Well, the photographs always used to be. They existed only to serve the making of the painting.
Yeah.
For all the earliest years. They had no life of their own outside of that. That's because I took one photograph to make a painting from, and I might bracket the shots and try and get different exposures, but I was making one photograph to make a painting from.
Yeah.
When I got involved in Polaroid, what I was doing was, now I get the one photograph that I wanted, well, I might as well take some more photographs while I'm here. And I began to make photographs that were only going to be photographs. They were not going to be used in the making of painting. And from that point forward, I guess I reluctantly was a photographer, because I was making things that were just going to stay photographs. Then I thought, okay, as long as if I'm going to be a photographer, I might as well do some things that interest me the only thing I collect personally really are photographs. So I might as well make something that's interesting as the photograph itself.
Is the other guy?
Well, let me tell you a Richard Avedon story, as a matter of fact. It'll tell you something interesting. Avedon came to my very first show at Biker Gallery on 81st Street in 1968. Okay? He told me years later that he went, after he saw my 9-foot-high black and white portraits, he went home and he blew up all of his negatives and made big prints. He said, I'm going to take these photographs and I'm going to make them look like art. And he was very generous about saying that. He said, I never would have done it had I not seen your work and seen what an image, what a photographic-like image looks that big, and how you address it and how you confront it as different from, regular sized photograph, which I thought was very nice of him to acknowledge, and I was very happy to have had that effect on his
Had that
work.
influence on his.
When you collect photography, I'm just curious. Do you pay? Is the criteria for collecting? Do you pay much attention to the materials? Whether it's on like rivet paper or digital print or anything like that. Is there
Yeah.
any focus on
Yeah.
the image?
Well, of all the world of photography out there, I've limited myself to portraiture, just to keep the scope of my collection down. Do I see photographs that I like better than some of the portrait photographs? Sure, but just to have some focus, I decided to focus on portraits. So I have a portrait collection. I have a wonderful, wonderful early Man Ray Solarized photograph. I have, I have prints as well as photographs. And I have wonderful Cindy Shermans and stuff like that as well. Well,
In person.
what Denora's trying to do with actually making paintings for photographs, and she does paintings and she doesn't consider herself a photographer, but she makes photographs. And that whole issue I think is very interesting, because I think there's a very interesting difference between making a painting and making a photograph.
I was actually thinking of making a painting.
Right.
So that's how I started with the painting.
They're very much a painter's attitude, a painter's vision. It almost looks to me like you were constructing actors on a stage.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. When I used to work in photography, every the idea, people thought, oh, if you got the negative, you had the everything. No, the negative is just the beginning.
Right. In fact, the trouble with the way most people shoot digital now is it really ought to duplicate what used to happen in the darkroom. The digital picture is just the beginning.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
only
You spend at
it's
least
like
the
a
same
negative.
time at Photoshop as you do in the dark room.
Absolutely. You used
Yes.
to go in the darkroom, you would dodge and
Yes.
burn
Right.
and use different filters
That's just
and whatever,
black
and carefully craft an image.
Yeah.
Not the first thing that snaps into the
Sure.
back of the camera when you take it. And that's what I love about Denora's work is she's collecting imagery, collecting a whole batch of stuff to sort through and then use the digital process in Photoshop to build an image. She's building an image. She's not taking an image.
Exactly.
Right.